How's everybody doing? Excellent. Hey, listen, I recently celebrated my 50th birthday, the half-century mark, and despite my complete apprehension about that moment, it really turned out to be not quite as bad as I was worried it was going to be. And in fact, as I stand here today looking out over this audience, I'm reminded that life is actually pretty cool. So thank you all for showing up. It was just a few years ago when I actually had some questions that might sound familiar to you in terms of what I wanted to be doing with my life. Was this it? Was this the sum total of everything that I'd been taught? Was I happy? Was I headed in the right direction with what I was doing? Politics is a family business in the Durkan family, and one that dates back to 1913 when my grandfather, an Irish immigrant, was elected to the State House of Representatives for Montana. And 50 years later, my dad would be elected to the state Senate right here in Washington. My sister Jenny served as United States District Attorney under President Obama, and I was proud to serve under 3 different mayors for the city of Seattle. First, as a policy advisor for the mayor, and then as a community coordinator for a little smaller department. And in both roles, which I loved, my job was essentially the same. I was that of a liaison between a 10,000 city workforce, 10,000 city bureaucrats, and 600,000 people that lived in the city of Seattle. My job was to disseminate, deliver, decode messages. Sometimes people don't speak government. And believe it or not, sometimes government doesn't speak regular people talk. And being one of 8 in a Catholic, big Irish Catholic family, you get pretty good at being a peacemaker. So it was a natural job that I loved very much. It was challenging and even at times quite entertaining. I don't know how many of you can boast that you get to show up to your workplace every day and debate the merits of tree pruning with people in tall rubber tree suits, but I can, so. Now, at this point in my life, politics was one of those avenues I thought was going to kind of get me there, was going to be where I wanted to land in life, in some very tall shadows. And I had been taking photos at this point for several years. I never really thought of myself as good or as a professional like some of the people that I really admired, but I was very avid about it and very passionate about it. And one day, just a couple years after I took this picture, something very profound happened, something very simple, but something that would change my life, the way that I would look at how I wanted to approach the world, or as my dad used to say, leave your mark on the world. And one day in October 2013, I woke up. It wasn't a day that I really felt it was going to be a profound impact on my life. In fact, just the opposite. I woke up with a horrible cold, coughing, sneezing, that only got worse as the day went on, 103-degree temperature, and I really didn't want to roll out of bed. I just felt horrible. But as any decent photographer will tell you, towards sunset, you get up, you look out the window to see what's happening during the golden hour. See if there's anything worth taking a picture of. And that's what I did. I dragged myself out of bed, feeling pretty low, 400-square-foot little apartment I've lived in for 25 years now. Didn't want to see anything. I was about to throw open the blinds to my place and really expecting just another October day in Seattle, gray overcast, right? So went over, threw open the blinds. That was a pretty amazing sight. You have the iconic Space Needle draped in this blanket of fog against that wonderful backdrop of the Olympic Mountains. I'd never seen anything quite like it, staring out of that window of mine. And so as my heartbeat started to grow louder, I forgot all about the fact that I was just sick. And I went and grabbed my camera gear, got to my secret place, got a couple pictures I thought were pretty good, posted them on a little place called Facebook, and went back to bed for about 12 hours. Whew. Now, when I awoke to my phone ringing crazy, my friends calling me and saying, "Oh my God, that picture you took is all over the news. Have you seen it?" I'm like, "News? What are you talking about?" "It's all over the place." So I tuned in, turned on my little Facebook. Within 12 hours, that picture had been seen almost 500,000 times. And by the time the weekend rolled around, Millions of people had seen this picture that I took from the rooftop of my little condo, which blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. Now, it changed a couple things. First of all, it changed the way that I thought about photography in terms of making it a profession. It changed the way people kind of looked at me in terms of, this guy's actually pretty good. He can shoot, which is nice. And more importantly, it changed the way I thought I could change the world, the way I could deliver my message. Suddenly, politics, which I had known my whole life, which is an important sport, full contact sport. My father understood it, my sisters. Suddenly, politics took a back seat to photography as a new way to help tell my story, the way I wanted to be heard. And over the course of the next couple years, I was very proud to have my work featured on places ABC, NBC, CBS. USA Today had a nice feature on me. Friends over at CNN posted some of my pictures on their front page, very cool. And get this, GeekWire. I knew I'd made the big time when the picture of my Aurora Borealis here made GeekWire. That's a pretty cool accomplishment that I'm still very proud of. So the question really became, and it happened very quickly, what do I do with this newfound respect, this celebrity that social media was giving me? Because there was other things that were more important to me that were going on in and around the Emerald City, the city that I was born in and that I love. Issues of homelessness. We've all seen pictures like this, or maybe scenes in our own neighborhood. Issues of addiction. I helped this guy get down to the sobering center where he got to spend the night. But these are scenes that were playing out in my neighborhood on a daily basis. And they weren't isolated incidences. I didn't have to go very far to realize that, wow, this Emerald City that was so famous for its tech, its industry, its Starbucks, it had some serious issues. And it wasn't just a couple people. There were thousands of people living in the streets of Seattle, in tent cities, in our green belts, our city parks, underneath our freeways, entire communities of people that had been lost and forgotten. This was very bothersome to me. These are the stories that I felt I wanted to bring to people outside of my prettier works. And within this community of homeless folks, many of them who I call my friends, there was another very bothersome secret that I saw brewing on the horizon. That has to do with the issue of addiction, especially as it relates to heroin. This is a friend of mine I ran into just a few weeks ago who bought this little needle of heroin for less than $10 right out front of a big grocery store chain in my neighborhood. This is right here in my own neighborhood. These are things that I was seeing on a nightly basis that I couldn't no longer turn my head from, that I felt important enough to bring to the outside world. The next picture is kind of hard to look at. If you don't like needles, it's a good time to look away, just for a minute. So many of you are accustomed to hearing about prescription pills, painkillers, opioids they're called, Vicodin, OxyContin, Percocets. These are all very powerful cousins of heroin. These pills, if you can find them on the streets, are about $30 a piece, the gold standard. Heroin is $8, and it's for sale right here in Friday Harbor, by the way. It's not a big city problem. And while scenes like this are incredibly hard to look at, believe me, they were hard to take. They're still hard to look at. It's hard to understand that I was there that night watching my friend do this. So this would become the focus of my work, the pretty and the gritty. And I was very happy to talk with my friend Nicole Broder at the Seattle Times, who shared my stories. Because these are stories that I want people to to remember, of course. The funny thing is that when this story came out, people started to really wake up like, wow, holy, that's in Seattle? This is an issue in my town? How could that be? You got Amazon and Starbucks and Microsoft. How are these people getting like this? That's a complex set of questions, and it has a very complex answer that can take teams of people years to help kind of unravel. One of the interesting questions people ask me is, how did you get to know these people, Tim? I mean, people like my friend Sean here, who's been on the streets of Seattle for about a decade. One of the nicest, sweetest guys you'll ever meet. Got a huge addiction issue. My friends Eric and Bella. She was 6 months pregnant when this photo was taken. They were living in doorways in and around Capitol Hill, my neighborhood. And this is her baby, Ethan, born here just about 3 months ago. They've been struggling to find permanent housing so that they can start building the life that everybody deserves. You'll be happy to know that Eric texted me as I was preparing for this show saying, Tim, you're not going to believe it. We just got a letter from the housing authority and we have housing vouchers. We might get our keys to our new apartment by Monday afternoon. And Tim, you're not going to believe it. With your help and encouragement, I got a job offer at Ivers down on the waterfront. Fortunes can change if we help each other out. This is a really good story. It's my friend Rick. He's been on the streets over 20 years now. And very nice guy. He says he loves the freedom that homelessness provides, which is interesting. But he says he can't stand the way that loneliness creeps into his life unexpectedly. And he said something really profound to me the other night. He said, Tim, I can sit here for hours with my sign trying to make a couple bucks, and people walk right by me. They don't even see me. It's like I'm a ghost. That's a loneliness that I don't ever want to experience, and I'm sure some of you can relate too. My friend Luke from Arizona, he's been on the streets for about 10 years. Misses his family a lot. Doesn't think that they miss him. I think he's probably wrong there. And says that the worst mistake he's ever made was doing heroin. Is worried that he can't get back to a place of normality. I think he's wrong. This guy, let me tell you about this guy. If you come to Seattle, you're going to want to meet my friend Broadway Mike. This guy is the most famous guy on the streets. He lived underneath the Bank of America in my neighborhood for 10 years, dug out an apartment by himself, and lived there rent-free for a decade before he had a few friends over one night. They got to playing music, live music, and the cops came and shut him down. And I think he's still the only one to this day who's gotten away from paying Bank of America cent on a mortgage like that. You'll be happy to know that he is in permanent housing now. He got himself an apartment after 25 years on the streets. And I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, you know what? I love the fact I can lock my door and go to sleep on a mattress. That just blows my mind. The simple things in life that we take for granted are crazy. But a really good guy. And I want you to meet him if you ever come out and visit me. Now, don't get me wrong. I love taking pictures. You won't find somebody that loves taking pictures of sunsets and ferry boats more than me. I promise you. If you're looking for this kind of a scenery, come to my Facebook site. I got you covered. That's me. Chasing rainbows in a pouring down rainstorm, got you covered. I'll get that shot. Or how about that Aurora Borealis a couple months ago? Did you guys catch that? 2 a.m. in the morning, I got that shot. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the first time in 50 years that anything like that had been seen dancing over the Emerald City, and I was happy to catch it. I love taking those kinds of pictures. But in my heart of hearts, I know they aren't going to change the minds of policymakers like the mayor, Mayor Murray, who's a good guy. He works very hard, loves the city of Seattle with all his heart. Invited me up to a place called the East Duwamish Greenbelt. Some of you might have also heard it referred to as the jungle. Very dangerous place. But the mayor invited me up to meet with and photograph and document some of these people that need help. And I was very proud that he turned around and used my photos to help convince the city council to open up a new navigation center where homeless people can come, grab a coffee, grab a shower, check the job postings, get in touch with social services to help them get out underneath the clutch of homelessness and addiction. I was very happy to help there. My friends at King County have a task force on opiate addiction, and I was proud to lend them my photos to help illustrate the story, because a good picture can tell 1,000 words, and statistics can take 1,000 words. So I'm very happy to lend those photos so that my friends can tell the story of addiction. Let me drop a couple final thoughts on you here. When you find yourself in those life-positive moments, maybe it's walk on the beach with your loved one or with your family. For me, it's taking pictures, like this one, which was almost a year ago to the date of that blood-red super eclipse as it sailed up over the Space Needle. And I thought, and I'm still looking at this going, man, you were there. You got that shot, Tim. When you find yourself in that moment, hold on to it. Live in the moment, because they don't come around very often, and they certainly don't last very long. But it's your first opportunity. Help share that positivity with somebody less fortunate, with somebody vulnerable. Introduce yourself to somebody who you recognize as homeless. Buy them a cup of coffee and get to know them. I guarantee not only will you brighten their day, but you'll probably learn something about how best to help them, maybe even on a larger scale about how we can all start to address this issue that we're seeing in the streets. Remember, they're not an alien invasion force. These are our friends. Some of them are our family members that wind up on the streets, our coworkers, and they are our neighbors. Let's show them some love, patience, and understanding. And let's see if we can't get out there and make a difference in their life. Thank you very much, everybody.